All right, maybe we'll wait a couple more minutes to let folks join us here. All right. All right, Andrea, looks like we do have a quorum for our executive and the ops group. The executive is the core of the ops group. So I think whenever you're ready to get started, we're good to go.
I'll call the meeting to order. And it looks like we know everyone here today, and we don't need to go through roll call. So Sarah distributed the minutes from the November 10th of 2021 meeting. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to review them. Would anyone like to make a motion on those minutes?
I'll move.
Second.
I'll second.
And seems like a long time ago that meeting occurred back in November. But any discussion, additions, deletions, or deletions that need to be made? Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes from November 10th of 2021 signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. It doesn't look like we have any public comment. Is that correct, Sarah?
Krista, no public comment, correct?
No public comment.
So then our item is to review the Cjcc survey results that were sent out electronically.
Okay, and I'm going to share my screen with, so the survey went out to all members. We've got 20 members, voting members of the Cjcc. We received 11 survey results. So I'm not sure if all the folks here had a chance to provide input to that survey. Definitely, this is one of the critical groups that we do want to get the input. So it was a blind survey, so I don't know who put in their input and who didn't. I still have the survey open, so if you have not completed it, you'll be able to do that as well. So it looks like Michelle Barrow is joining us here. So she's the new DOC field rep. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And we're going to go over some of the results. So as I mentioned, just 11 survey results. So out of 20, we do have, I guess, the majority providing input, but pretty weak participation level, I would say.
Sarah, excuse me, can you enlarge that at all?
Yes, I should be able to. Let's see.
That's why I have to retire from the board. I can't read my screen anymore.
Let's see. Krista, how can I enlarge this?
If you click the three dots at the top on the right, next up one.
That one?
Zoom in there. You can zoom.
Oh, I see it. Yeah. There we go.
Much better.
Oh, too big. There we go.
No. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. I learned something, so that's good. Okay, so real quickly to go through the results. I want to go through it quickly enough, but also have time enough that you can get the gist of the feedback. The first question here was really trying to gauge the limits of the Cjcc. So really looking at what traditional Cjcc's do out there. It looks like we've got, most of our member or the feedback really does support most of what we're doing. We do not do the funding oversight for agency budgets, and we do not do policy actions. But we do the rest of those things: collaborate, collect information, educate, seek out effective strategies. So we've got some consensus there. Looking at the value of the CJCC, we have more variety of responses. So the majority do see value in the CJCC, but there's a couple that look like they're on the fence or skeptical of the value. When we're looking at the composition of the CJCC, it looks like, we do have most of the stakeholders represented, so that's good. Do we, as far as, is the voice or the role necessary? Most feel that it is. A couple looks like unsure. As far as gauging the commitment of members, most feel like they are committed, to the CJCC. It looks like we've got one outlier here saying that they're not committed. Kind of getting at the frequency of meetings. It looks like most respondents thought, the semi-annually or quarterly meeting frequency for the full council is sufficient. Not too many wanted more meetings in general. Looking at the structural changes, and we do have this on for an action here in a minute, really wanted to get the feedback on the operations committee. This was the new committee structure that we came up with in 2021. And it looks like, the majority of folks do like the change and rating the effectiveness. We know we've got some challenges, but it looks like the change is, supported. Looking at the frequency of meetings again, most people think it's just right. Some think it's too many, some not enough. So we're kind of all over, but generally just right. When we're looking at topics, let's see what we can do to get folks more engaged. We've got a variety of responses. So some are unsure, some want to see more topics of interest, but those interests aren't necessarily identified. Education, more on the actions of the members, feeling that it is relevant to the day-to-day work. Some feel it's already relevant. Some feel really it should be encouraging more of those best practices. And then really getting more people involved in the meetings versus just the staff report information. Trying to see if folks are willing to, participate more and engage in work groups or feel comfortable and confident in making recommendations to the council. It looks like the majority do. Some are questioned, are not quite sure. And then somebody does not feel comfortable doing those roles. As far as a group, do we kind of gauging our effectiveness of our system right now? Some think that we are effective and efficient and, we don't necessarily need areas of improvement. Others think that there are certain areas that could be improved upon. Oversight of our treatment courts, pretrial improvements, meth solutions, need more commitment from the sheriff, jail, judiciary, need more resources for program participants in relation to treatment, housing, supports out there. More room for new ideas and improvements, get folks on the same page. OWIs, a large system driver and using a lot of resources. So one suggestion is to develop a strategic plan to address that and to focus on the meth again. Housing comes up as one of those issues as well. And then we've got some more, members talking about evidence-based practices and really committing themselves to understanding and implementing, looking for solutions that are evidence-based, and then really being as agency leaders being willing to shift our organizational priorities to really accommodate those evidence-based practices. So looking at what we would like to see, what members would like to see the CJCC address, it's some of those things mentioned above. Also addiction, mental health, housing, collaboration, comprehensive recidivism program. I'm not quite sure what that means, but recidivism is definitely one of those topics. Evaluation of the cost of some of the programs and the benefits to the community. Looking at, now that we're 2 years into COVID and there's less folks coming into the jail, how are those impacting things? Got Judge Meyer joining us here. Continue to address programming, services for offenders, and then pretrial monitoring, the bail jumping, avoiding folks reoffending when they're in that pretrial stage. And then meth, again, comes up as one of those topics. So as far as collecting opinions on what we can do to improve the system locally, more collaboration, more focus on evidence-based decisions, diverting more mental health and addiction cases from the system. Some would like to meet in person. I guess one, emphasize meeting in person and, really the difficulty in engaging folks remotely. Engage stakeholders, really for us to figure out how to engage stakeholders. Continuing education and looking for funding to support those programs. Ensure folks are receiving the services and really tying that to reduce recidivism. Coordination of agency leaders and frontline staff in the implementation and value of evidence-based strategies. And then again, streamlining services for offenders. So as far as the top 3 priorities to focus on, it looks like we definitely have consensus on specific strategies to address methamphetamines. So that definitely stands out of the rest. The others are kind of a mixed bag. So it looks like the pretrial and legal and evidence-based practices, housing, and reentry were the next most frequent recommendations to focus on. Enhancement of treatment court is also on there, so some of those existing programs. And then, we've got a smattering of all the other things that we've been working on in general. So again, trying to get opinion on what we could do to see more of and less of. And this, I had to kind of chuckle when I read this because it's all over the place. So a more consensus on direction, more results and outcome, more focus on evidence-based practices, more partner engagement, no more meetings remotely, engagement of stakeholders. Some things, we're doing things just fine. We want to address collaboration and reduce recidivism. We want to receive some training on organizational change and emphasize the evidence-based practices, and then more discussion with all the stakeholders. What would we like to see less of out there as far as members? Less repeating of meeting content, less spending time on something another agency is working on, less presentation of reports and data, which that's one of our principles, is to be data driven. So, but I understand creation of new programs and reevaluate the ones that we currently have in place. Less reporting out at the meetings. And then we have some that didn't really have specific feedback. As far as do members collaborate with the system as a whole as in the best interest? And it looks like, the majority think maybe, a smaller majority think yes, a slim majority say no. And then, it looks like it depends on the partner, and most members do collaborate. So we've we've got kind of a mixed bag there as far as the interests that we bring to the table. These ones were pretty clear. Do you support the use of evidence-based practices in the system? The majority say yes. Do you believe evidence-based practices can reduce crime and victimization? The majority think yes. And do we believe offenders can be rehabilitated? Majority think yes. And do you see treatment for do you see value in treatment for offenders? And again, the majority say yes. So those are definitely some areas of agreement. And it looks like we have a lot of different opportunities to go into other areas. So at this point, I'm going to stop sharing, and I am going to turn it over to Andrea to facilitate our conversation.
Okay, Sarah, that was a lot and a lot fast. So I know we only have an hour. So I guess, is there any discussion that we want to have on the survey results? I mean, personally, I think it might be helpful to have that shared with the members if we're able to, so we can look at it more in detail moving forward, I think. But Sarah and Chris and I met to kind of go over goals for 2022. And it seems like we're kind of all over the board, but Chris mentioned, picking one or two goals, for the year. And I think what I gathered from the survey results was that perhaps, methamphetamine or strategies to address methamphetamine seems to be the consensus based on that survey. So is there any further discussion that we want to have on the survey results, or do we want to move on to changes to the Cjcc and goals for 2022?
I just emailed the survey results to the group here, so you should see that in your inbox. Unfortunately, because of the format, it didn't necessarily pull all the different answers, but you'll get the majority of it.
Looks like Dave has something to say.
We didn't have a very large percentage of people responding. Do we want to send out another email and see if we can get more people to respond? Of the 20, we don't even have everybody that's at this meeting today has responded. So if we do want to do that, then we should wait and see the end results. Otherwise, if we're going to go with these results, then I think they should be shared with everybody.
Paul?
Yeah, I endorse the idea of obviously sharing the data, but I would recommend as a action item and some prompt to the membership to review those and be prepared to discuss and agree on one or two specific goals for Cjcc for 2022 at our next meeting. You can use the survey to inform it, or have other things that perhaps weren't covered on this survey, although it was fairly comprehensive. But that should be doable if we make that a homework assignment. Everybody review it, read it, give it some consideration, and be prepared to say what your one or two goals could be and see if we can come to consensus.
So I'm fine with that. I guess it's just a little bit different because we have our meeting next Thursday. So we would have to get people to respond pretty quickly this week or early next week, and then get those sent out. And it's a little bit different for our format, right? Because we usually present our goals at the large group, but I'm certainly fine with the large group trying to establish the goals together if we want to do it that way. Any thoughts on that?
No, I think that's a good idea, kind of establish the goals together.
As a large group, Sheriff, you're referring to?
Yeah, I mean, if we come in and roundtable it and come up with ideas at that time and, have some ideas that other people that aren't at this meeting may have and share.
That makes sense, especially when we're wanting to really encourage that engagement and discussion at our larger meetings. This could be a good way to do that.
Okay, that sounds good to me. There's nothing else about the survey results. I guess as far as 6B of the agenda, we can defer to our goals as a large group. Do we want to discuss any structural changes to the CJCC? I think that was addressed in the survey as well. If the members are in agreement with the new structure that we're following with less meeting, less defined work groups. Does anyone have any discussion they want to have or any proposed changes based on the survey or your feelings over the last year about the new format? Not all at once. Sounds like silence is good then, that we will just continue with having a little bit less meetings or less work groups, and then continue with having the executive operations meeting. Any objection to combining those? I know at one point we had discussed having a separate operations, a separate executive. I think we ended up just combining them. I personally think it's okay, but any thoughts or discussion on that?
I will volunteer that honestly, I'm not sure what the distinction between the executive and the operations is anyway. Maybe somebody can educate me on that.
Yeah, so the operations committee was designed to be really the criminal justice kind of lead agencies discussing operationally programs, kind of digging in the weeds of different areas. Executive is more of the guiding group. So when we formed the ops group, all the executive wanted to be in the ops group. So that's so we ran into where we had back-to-back meetings of the same essentially core group of people, and executive, because of the ops group kind of taking on more of the operational side, so to speak, there was less kind of effort that the executive had to kind of put forth. So that's why we have more of the combined meeting format in the last couple of months, just to kind of eliminate the redundancy of meetings and tapping the same small group of people over and over again.
So if I'm following what you're saying, Sarah, you're basically agreeing with me that executive and ops is basically the same thing. So I'm in favor of keeping them, not making them separate, keeping them concurrent, because it's the same group of people anyway.
I would just add, I think some of our earlier discussion was having, a different agency speak, the first 10 or 15 minutes to update the group on, how treatment court's doing, or TOP is doing, or probation's doing. And I think because of the time frame, executive is more turned into, planning so we're missing that piece. I don't know if that's something we want to try to consider incorporating in the future, or if we're incorporating in our large groups. It always comes down to time. But that is one item I think we're missing.
And I agree with the DA that, we're probably missing some information that it's actually being done, the jail programs and stuff that are being run. And I would love to have Heather come in when she's back from maternity and just give a report on all the programs that we're running through the jail and how successful she feels they are and things like that. Because I think we're kind of missing that part. and part of the survey is more engagement from the sheriff and the jail and stuff. Well, I don't know how much more, we possibly can't run any more programs through the jail than we are right now, I don't think, but other than with COVID restrictions. So I think we're pretty engaged, and it'd be nice to hear into the whole group, hear some of that report.
Would that be better instead of at the executive and operations meeting, be better to hear those reports at the full Cjcc meeting that we have? We'd get more information to more people.
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate.
As a supervisor, I would like to hear the different, what the different departments are doing, because you probably have an idea what the other departments are doing, but as supervisors, we probably don't. And it would be, we have some ideas on what's going on, but we probably don't hear it in as near of detail. And it would be nice to hear that, especially when we're considering support for something.
I agree with David. I think that the more communication there can be with the supervisors, the more knowledgeable they are about the programs of CJCC, what's working, what it maybe is being attempted, what's on the agenda, the more appropriate their votes on budget would be when it came time to do that. We had a session, it must have been 3 or 4 years ago now, where we prioritized those programs that the county has to offer and doesn't have to offer. And I probably drew some askance looks when I said that CJCC is one of those things that the county does not have to do. I believe in it wholeheartedly, and I think it would be the stupidest thing on earth if we were to stop doing this. But frankly, if it came down to we had $10 and we had to fund the sheriff or CJCC, it would probably have to go to the sheriff, because that's an obligation, excuse me, that we're bound to. So the more information that we can get about the operation of CJCC to the supervisors, the better off we'll be.
So I would agree as well. If getting it to the large group might be a nice idea. Sarah, would there be anyone who could do that next week even, and just have a brief kind of discussion as to what's going on with their program? I know, did we have Janae talk about treatment court recently?
Yeah, we did have probably this summer, Janae did speak about treatment court. Actually, she was ill that day, so I think I gave the result or the update. But yes, we can absolutely, we've got family treatment court, we've got the reentry program. As Sheriff mentioned, Heather Pica is out on maternity leave, so she's not available. We've got lots of folks that can speak potentially. I think it's a matter of, what do we want to start with? It sounds like we definitely want to continue to have education components in our CJCC meetings. So whether we want to do inside agency updates versus kind of those outside agency updates. But yes, we can put something together. Is there any interest as far as what you want to start with?
I think it would be interesting to hear about the jail programs. I know that Heather's not available, but perhaps somebody else could fill us in. I'm sure the sheriff will step up and tell us all about the details on it, right?
Yeah, if I knew them all. Listing them all is even a challenge. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm out quarantined this week, so I'm not going to be able to work on it from the office at least until next week. So it may be a challenge for me to put something together, but let me think about somebody from the jail that may also have the knowledge on it.
If I can suggest something, it was a few months ago, the WCA put together a program that highlighted Dunn County's sheriff's program. And I suggested at that time that we try to show that to the board of supervisors. Other things got in the way, budget and things, but that might be a good place to start. I think if you took a look at that, and the video is probably still available, take a look at that video and pull out 10, 12 minutes of it. I think that might be a real good way to start that. And Sheriff, I see you nodding your head. You've obviously seen it.
Yeah, I watched it. Yeah, that'd be a good overview of what.
Yeah, and it highlights
in the jail.
a couple of the programs, and I think it would surprise some supervisors to see what's going on.
Yeah, I don't. WCA should have that in their archives, I would think, or should be available.
I can look for that, unless Sarah, you maybe have access to it anyway. But otherwise, I'll look for it and see if I can dig it out.
Okay, great.
All right, so look at that collaboration and agreement that we have for jail reentry discussion at our next meeting. And I think that's next Thursday. And then next Thursday, we'll go over goals. Sarah, are you looking for anything else with respect to next week's meeting? Any other agenda items that we need to address?
We will have a new member starting, Professor Colleen Ertzbach will be joining us. So it's just really welcoming her. I think the rest of the members are continuing members. We've got Michelle Barrow. She's also a newer member. So it's just really kind of, getting a meet and greet start of the year, but really just wanting to kind of focus on goals and where we want to go this year as a group.
Okay, so there's no further discussion. I think we can move on to determining our meeting frequency in 2022. Sarah, I think you already sent out the proposed meetings for 2022, which I thought was very helpful. So I could get them on the calendar. Are you looking for just consensus, whether we're in agreement with those dates?
Yeah, so just really us kind of getting the survey information, wanting to see where people are as far as meeting frequency. So this is the dates I sent out is really if we continue to have quarterly large council meetings with our monthly combined executive operations group, then we did have kind of dates outlined that would work for the majority of the group. If we were going to change the structure or wanted to have less meetings or more meetings, this would be the time to discuss that so we can get those worked on the calendars.
So my only suggestion, given the current discussion today, perhaps can we just name it the executive meeting and just get rid of operations, since we're going to have sort of an operations at the quarterly meetings? Can it just be the executive meetings monthly and then the CJCC quarterly, which would include an operational component, or 10 to 15 minutes discussion of a certain agency as to what they're doing?
So the executive only has 6 members, and that is, county manager, county board supervisor, presiding judge, and then 2 members at large that are elected. So it's a much smaller group if it's just the executive, and that is in our bylaws as far as who's in that membership. The operations committee was created more as a ad hoc committee, and the membership can fluctuate more. So they are a little bit different as far as how they're defined in our bylaws. So the point here is, if we're just meeting monthly with the executive, I don't know if we're getting the right audience to really kind of have meaty discussion at the table.
Okay, I'm fine doing executive / operations then monthly, and then large group quarterly. Any discussion on that?
very quickly, what's everybody's sense on the first executive committee meeting after a quarterly meeting? Do we typically have, Sarah, business that needs to be attended up to the month after the quarterly meeting? Or have we done, is there enough action or whatever that's done at that quarterly meeting that we could meet executive, maybe skip a month? I'm just looking for number of meetings, and I don't know, it's just my sense. Is it a useful meeting, first executive after the quarterly or not?
Yeah, we do have where the executive meets prior to the quarterly to kind of set the agenda and direction. Following the quarterly, not as much typically, although the CJCC county board report is in March, and it is under the executive responsibility to kind of provide that report or deliver that report. So of course, I do it under the guidance of the executive input. So that would be one business to tend to, but other than that, I don't know that there always is executive business, so to speak.
Maybe the same thing that I'm thinking about can be accomplished by just exercising some discretion on cancellation. We can leave the schedule as it is, but just to operate a little bit more discretion. Are there things that really are timely and need action? Or can we say, hey, in the case after a quarterly meeting in particular, where we really don't have anything pressing, maybe we cancel executive for that next time and pick it up again the following month. That's a different approach than simply assuming we don't have anything following those quarterly meetings.
Sounds good to me. Anyone else have any other discussion about that? Okay.
That sounds like a good idea to me. We can actually cancel the meeting anytime if we don't feel we have anything important to have on the agenda, but looking at the ones right after the quarterly meeting might be an idea.
So just looking at the schedule, so we would have like a quarterly meeting and it would just be the next monthly meeting. So you're saying if we meet, you don't really want to meet again for 2 months? Because right now how it's laid out, we've got monthly meetings. So, and it makes sense, right? If we don't have pressing business to tend to, that we would cancel the meetings, but the operations committee should also, be providing the oversight for the different programs and grants as well. So I think there's probably going to be business to tend to, but I appreciate the feedback, and I think, using discretion, and when we don't have much to discuss, then it makes sense to cancel those meetings, but at least get them on the calendar, and then we can cancel them as we move forward.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the CJCC agenda planning. I think we kind of covered it already. Sarah, I know you mentioned the one professor, and then is Shelley Jo Metzger or other citizen members staying with us?
Yes, yep, she has changed employers out there in the community, but she still resides in Dunn County. She would still like to participate on our council. We did approve her nomination at our last quarterly meeting. At first, she didn't think she'd be able to continue with us, but she is able to. So yes, she's sticking around.
Do any other members have agenda items that they would like to have addressed at the large CJCC meeting next week? Okay, then, moving on to staff report. Sarah, I see you sent out your written staff report, which I thought was helpful and interesting. Before you go into it, I just was wondering too, just the numbers, are definitely lower this year. And I was wondering either if the sheriff or chief could respond to this, because I've received questions about our filings being lower, as crime going down. And in my opinion, crime certainly is not going down. But I think there were less traffic stops during COVID. And so I just can't remember was there like MPD and DUSO and State Patrol weren't doing as many traffic stops, or what was how long did that go on?
I can answer at least part for the MPD. So during 2020, we had some restrictions on self-initiated activity for traffic stops. So they were minimized unless there was essentially a clear present hazard in place. And then also we weren't taking people into physical custody unless it was a violent crime or necessary or required by state law. And then we were doing that in part two to help the sheriff's office mitigate their COVID issues inside of the jail. As far as like crime trends, our overall crime trends have decreased nearly 35% over the last 6 years. So we've seen a dramatic decrease in crime in the city from where it was. So I do see crime going down. Doesn't mean that there isn't crime there. It just means that we're just seeing less of it and able to focus more on some of the more serious stuff. So that's at least what I've seen from MPD.
And I haven't looked at our traffic stop numbers over the last year, since first of the year, but I know they were down. I know there's a lot more catch and release going on to avoid taking people to jail, and kind of the stern talking to versus a criminal charge or something along that lines, just to reduce contact with people. And so I'm seeing areas that we're increasing, our burglaries and stuff like that. If we're not keeping if we're not hauling people to jail, we're starting to see an increase in our numbers of reported burglaries and thefts and things like that. So it's a yin and yang. It's a balance. If we're not out on the street, keeping tabs on people, it certainly has an effect to the community.
So thanks for that. I guess I was just wondering too, is sort of the direction to the officers still, unless it's a violent crime, to try to not arrest people and take them into jail due to the most recent COVID surge, or is that kind of gone away?
Yeah, we're back to catch and release everybody you possibly can right now with the current surge. I've got COVID running rampant through the jail, and it's tough to control, both with staff and inmates right now. So we opened back up to kind of taking everybody again there for 6 months or so, and now we're back to with the high transmission rates that we're really restricted on who we're allowing in. Obviously there's a list of about 7, and one of my jail sergeants, Doug Ormson, put a list together that would pretty well I think encompass the OWIs that have to have a sober adult to release, and domestics that are mandatory arrests, and violent felonies and stuff like that have to come to jail. And sometimes we deal with people on the street that they need to go to jail overnight before they do something even dumber, so there's just some people that need to spend the night and before they end up killing somebody or doing something really dumb. So.
Great, thank you for that. Sarah, is there anything you want to add to your written staff report?
So I do want to add that we did receive our award for the TAD grant for 2022. So Dave, I will route that for your signature. And it was fixed at the same amount that we've had in the past 4 years. So we did not get an increase in TAD funding, but we do have the money in the bank, so to speak. And then I wanted to give Chief Atkinson an opportunity to update the group on his good news that he has to share regarding a grant award.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. So just before Christmas, we found out that we were being awarded $584,000 for a Department of Justice COSIP grant, which is a collaborative grant aimed at trying to divert people away from the criminal justice system that have substance use disorders. So it'll provide a tremendous amount of funding that will help pay for a behavioral health officer, which will help coordinate what's called a quick response team, which does at-home interventions with people who have those addictions. So we'll be focusing on methamphetamine addiction and those people who have survived non-fatal overdoses. And then there's a variety of other programming and diversion and deflection strategies for adults and juveniles that are within that grant. So we are very excited about it, and we'll be reaching out to quite a few of you too to help partner with some of these things if you're able to. So very excited about it. It's been a process, and we've been trying to do something like this for about the better part of 5 years. So it's a very exciting time, and this will help us complete and move into phase 2 of Project Hope. That's the mayor's initiative for trying to deal with the methamphetamine addiction problem. So it's a very exciting time. Thank you, Sarah, for allowing me to speak about it.
You bet. That's just fantastic news. Any questions on the written report that I provided? Okay.
Chief, not to put you on the spot, but I also learned, didn't you get a grant for a really fancy drone that you're would you mind sharing that? I find it interesting.
Sure. So there was a state grant that was out there for drug interdiction purposes. So we applied for it and received a funding to the tune of about $49,000, and about $40,000 of it is going to a drone. And the drone can be used for well, really pretty much just about anything, for primarily drug interdiction. So if we get a warrant to surveil a property, we can utilize the drone to do that, to get a closer aerial footage versus using airplanes or helicopters to try to do something along those lines. Also, we can use it for other purposes like locating persons, documenting evidence of crime scenes, in particular outside in wooded areas where we can get higher vantage points. Could be looking for searching for folks that walk away, like we have vulnerable adults and vulnerable children. So it can be used for a variety of different purposes along with drug interdiction. And then part of that was to receive I have no idea how to use it, but we got smart people that do, but a very high-tech camera, digital SLR, that can be used to take very high quality photographs from a distance away, which allows officers to surveil areas without putting themselves in harm's way. So it's very interesting stuff, and we're working through getting our officers drone pilot licenses, because there are FAA requirements for that. So it's all very new to me, and I never thought ever 24 years ago I'd be talking about a drone. I don't even know if I knew what a drone was then. So times have certainly changed with technology.
That's neat. I find it so exciting. So, and it'll be great for court purposes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Right. And then I guess next item is our next meeting date, which would be January 13th, unless there's any other questions or discussion we need to have. Is this the first meeting with Michelle Barrow? Did you want to introduce yourself, Michelle, since you're on?
Sure. I think actually this is my second meeting, but the first one I was in was with Aaron. So I just kind of have been sitting back and taking a look. I'm the corrections field supervisor in Dunn County, and I come over from Chippewa, where I was an agent for many years. I've been with the department for 19 years altogether, so as a probation agent. So I look forward to working in a different county and seeing what Dunn County has to offer, and working with new judges. And jail has been fantastic, so I enjoy going there. Well, you know, I enjoy socializing with them.
You're
there.
one of
Not a
the
lot of
few-
people enjoy going to jail.
Yeah, right. I've been able to sit in on treatment court, which I have really enjoyed to see the difference of how treatment court is run in Dunn County compared to maybe how it was run in Chippewa County. And yeah, I'm excited to be a part of a CJCC meeting. So something that's new to me, I haven't done over all these years. But I hope at some point I can get a good understanding of what's going on, and that'll maybe help me contribute more to all of this.
Well, welcome.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
welcome. And, you know, if you'd like to get together and meet with the judges sometime, you know, we'd be happy to do that. I know we met with Aaron when he was here. He wasn't here very long.
You're
but,
right.
we'd be happy to sit down and meet with you sometime. We just have to set up a time.
That would be fantastic. I'll probably be reaching out.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
What about Jonathan Lundeen? Has he been part of this? Is everyone familiar with him, our public defender?
Yeah, I'm here. I've been to a few of these meetings before, but sorry, I'm without a camera today because I don't need you guys seeing my messy house with 3 kids racing around.
All right, so if there's nothing else, our next meeting will be next Thursday via Zoom at 4 o'clock, and then tentatively for February 2nd. We'll go over our goals for 2022.
I do want to change the February 2nd has been changed to February 16th. So I will, I think our calendar updates have gone out, but this agenda went out before we changed that date. That's it.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.